a lot of people were doing blogs with really obvious names of who they were, like yoga running mom or like country farm girl, things like that. And I thought, okay, what 3 words could describe me to give people a very clear idea about who I am, my reality, and what I believe in.
Right.
And I was talking to a friend one day and I said, well, I'm fat, I'm gay, and I'm vegan. And to me it sounded great. It sounded like it rolls off the tongue. I can shorten it to FGV, which a lot of people call me.
Right.
And it just felt like the right name for my blog.
Welcome to Walking with Vegans to Get Tea, where I, Jordi Casamitjana, walks with another vegan somewhere in London, and we end up having tea somewhere. I'm in Bethnal Green, which is an area on the northeast of London, and today I'm going to be talking to Sean O'Callaghan, also known as FGV, and you'll see how interesting this conversation will be. And here he is. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm all right. We are just on the helicopter, and we're going to let it happen rather than having to startle the back and go. When it goes, we can start walking.
Okay. Do you know, you've picked a really great city to do this in with all the noise.
Yes.
You've got construction, traffic, air traffic, children playing. There's so much noise.
Well, we'll see how the equipment deals with it and the post-production, but that's the reality of the world today.
Okay.
Well, let's start with the basics. So this is Walking with Vegan, so we have to establish that we are vegan.
Yes.
So let's start with me. I'm vegan. I've been vegan since January 2002. I grew up in Catalonia. Probably my journey started there because I was a Catalan culture oppressed under the fascist regime in Spain, and that made me sympathize later on with oppressed creatures like animals, and I chose the animal rights route to become a vegan. It's a long story, but many people know about this, but we want to know about you because you also know as FGV, and we're going to know about the V now. We'll talk about the other letters later.
Oh yeah, but before I start, can I just ask you one question about where you grew up? Is that, were you sort of informed by the whole bullfighting resistance? Because Catalonia was one of the first places, wasn't it, to outlaw
Absolutely,
bullfighting.
And I was part of it. I was involved in that banning. But no, when I grew up, this bullfighting was a symbol of Spain. So therefore, anything that was a symbol of Spain had been imposed to the Catalan culture. So we always saw that as an external thing. So that's why it was easy to ban it 1 year later, because it was not part of the culture. But I was not really involved in the anti-bullfighting movement then, because I became an animal protectionist much later when I became a zoologist.
Okay.
But
thanks for that.
That's all right. We can talk more about this, but people want to know how you become a vegan now. So
it's a long time for me. I don't remember the exact month and year like you do,
right?
But I have been vegan for about 26 years.
Right.
So I don't know how to work that out. Is that 1999?
Yeah, 1999.
Roughly around that time. I was vegetarian for a few years before that. And I suppose to go back and tell that story, I started to see my involvement in animal suffering through a series of accidents. Right. And there's the noise again. It's hard to concentrate, right, with all the noise of London.
Ignore that. So yeah.
I can remember one time being in a car with some friends, and we were living in Sydney, in New South Wales in Australia.
Because you're Australian.
Yes, I am Australian. Yeah. And we were traveling in the car on the highway, and we were stuck in the traffic jam, and we were stuck beside a truck that was full of chickens, live chickens, and it was a heat wave. And I can remember sitting in the car thinking, if I'm uncomfortable and I feel like this is pushing me to the limits of what I can stand being in the car and it being this hot, what would those chickens be feeling? And I can remember thinking, actually, I buy and eat chicken. So they're not just some random chickens in the car, in a truck.
Yeah.
They're chickens that I might be complicit in their circumstance. So I became vegetarian. And this was a very long time ago, in the 90s. And for me, it was the first step in exploring my compassion, in understanding that the actions that I take as a consumer might have a direct impact on the well-being or the suffering of animals, or the lack of suffering. So I became a vegetarian. And it wasn't until a few years after that I'd moved to the UK, and the internet started to become a thing. Do you remember the days before the internet?
Oh, I don't remember so well.
Well, we're both of a similar age, right?
Yeah. We are similar, and we also more or less the same amount of vegan years.
Okay.
So yeah, we've gone through the same process.
Yeah, so when the internet started to become more readily available, I started to find more information. I started to see information shared on chat forums and blogs and message boards about how factory farming affects chickens with the production of eggs, and also with dairy cows and the long-term suffering that dairy cows go through for the production of milk, for dairy milk. And I thought to myself over a period of a few weeks, hey, if I care about well-being of animals and the welfare of animals, and I don't want to contribute to the suffering, or I'd like to lessen my contribution to suffering, I shouldn't just be a vegetarian. I should be this thing that I've heard about called vegan.
Yeah.
And I decided to go vegan, and I made that switch. Kind of like wasn't overnight, but sometimes when you make the decision, you either do it or you don't.
Yeah. And
so I had been mulling the thoughts around a little bit in my mind, and then one day I was like, no, I'm vegan now. Like, that's the way that I'm going to live. So that's it in a sort of a nutshell. There was lots of other offshoots to the story, but that's it.
And that's the V of FFGV. Now,
FGV, yeah.
Everybody wants to know about the other letters. Tell me about the other letters.
Well, I don't think it takes a genius to work out what fat gay vegan means. But, for me, when I started getting more into spreading awareness about veganism, I wanted to start a blog, and it was around the time 2010. Do you remember when blogs were a really big thing?
I do remember.
Blogs have sort of fallen a bit out of trend, haven't they?
Yeah.
But a lot of people were doing blogs with really obvious names of who they were, like yoga running mom, or like country farm girl, things like that. And I thought, okay, what 3 words could describe me to give people a very clear idea about who I am, my reality, and what I believe in.
Right.
And I was talking to a friend one day, and I said, well, I'm fat, I'm gay, and I'm vegan. And to me, it sounded great. It sounded like it rolls off the tongue. I can shorten it to FGV, which a lot of people call me.
Right.
And it just felt like the right name for my blog. Now, a few people told me that I shouldn't do it. It was maybe a little bit too controversial, or it might give people the wrong idea. But to me, it was also a way of using 3 words that at one time or other in my life had made me feel either excluded from certain spaces or had been used to put me down.
Right.
And I thought, well, it's almost like a personal political statement to use those words and to turn it into something positive, and to help spread the message of veganism, and to help create a community around celebrating compassion.
Right. But I must say, although clearly the V is still there, and the G, I assume, is still there. I
don't need to prove that to anyone.
Yeah, exactly. But the F, I would question that one, because I met you before, and I would say that probably you need to change the actual meaning of that F.
Well, the F part of it, the F word, it's a very complicated thing. I've been overweight for the majority of my adult life, and my weight has fluctuated a lot.
Right. But you are in the perfect kind of shape at the moment. So.
Well, I make no secret of it that I do have been living with compulsive eating disorder.
Right.
To me, I try to compartmentalize it. Like the word fat gay vegan, like the word fat was just a way to describe how I felt and how I identified at the time that I started the blog, and the personality around the blog. It's still a part of me. So no matter what I weigh, and technically I'm still overweight, I'm still in the obese category. No matter how my body changes, I'm still fat gay vegan. I'm still that same person that believes in those body politics and the the social justice concerns that made me choose that name in the first place.
Right.
So
We are in the place they're going to have tea, but I think it's too early, isn't it? Because they haven't opened yet. So we can just carry on walking a little bit and come back.
Okay.
Yourself. So yeah, no, that makes sense. But I think the word fabulous works much better now.
yeah, and I am mindful of if I do become a certain body shape or a certain weight, that it might feel disrespectful to people.
Right.
If they don't know my story and my history, that I'm using that term.
Yeah, exactly. They might not know.
Yeah.
But it's funny this thing about identities, because some identities are clearly defined from a very early age. Others you discover them through life, and others you feel more attached to it. But we all have multiple identities. Nobody has just one single identity. Whether they choose to be proud of that one or hide it somewhere else. Some identities are not even chosen by us, they're imposed by society to us. And sometimes when you are the target of some group, based on your identity, a negative target, you've been harassed, sometimes the best way is to embrace the identity rather than to hide it.
Oh yeah, and that happens all through history of people reclaiming or repurposing words or slurs to help take that power back, or that redress the power imbalance around oppression. And I mean, I'm sure people watching this don't need a lot of examples of that. We all know about different words that have been repurposed or reclaimed.
Yeah, and veganism itself is one of those identities that in many countries, we live in the UK and in London, which is not the case, but in many countries there still is such a minority group that still people kind of chase vegans off the street because they see them so weird that vegan phobia exists.
And I don't think, to be fair and equitable about the discussion, I don't think veganism generally comes with the same level of threat of harm that other persecuted minority status things would come with.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about race or disability or gender expression, or those things often come with much more higher or extreme risk of physical threat or threat to your well-being. But being vegan and trying to live a life of compassion does create an outsider status for you that can make you feel less part of the community where you grew up, or less part of your family, or sometimes it can put you in harm's way. Do you remember when there was the protest at the Vegan Café, Essential Vegan in Shoreditch?
Yeah, I remember.
And those people went in eating raw meat.
Right, I do remember, and I was there. Often I was doing outreach at the time.
Yeah.
And one of the raw meat people came when I was doing outreach and did the whole thing. So essentially, let's turn around, let's go back.
Okay.
Essentially, for those that don't know, they saw a vegan outreach event somewhere in London. They will just interrupt it and take some meat and eat it in front of us. And in one case, there was somebody eating a squirrel.
Yes.
And there was a conviction as well. So they were arrested and convicted. That became a big thing in those days.
And then also from a systemic point of view, or an institutional point of view, veganism or expressing your compassion through veganism or a plant-based diet can also lock you out of other forms of support or things that other people take for granted, like having the same level of medical support from the NHS, or you go to talk to doctors who don't understand plant-based nutrition, or
correct,
and so you can get treated differently or not have the same access to treatment or support that other people would get.
Yeah, and there is discrimination, and of course when you have several reasons or justifications that people use to discriminate, you all accumulate in one after the other. They are not just adding, they are multiplying the effect, the psychological effect. And I remember when we met, I don't know exactly the year, but for a while you were so involved in organizing events. And because, to be honest, I think the word influencer has been used a lot. I think you're the real influencer, because you influence me about choices of where to go to eat and where to buy, more than a teenager from California with kind of one of those voices that doesn't really make me think I trust that person.
Okay.
But you, I do. So I think you were the original influencer for me, because you were advertising.
Why do you think that I come across as trustworthy?
Well, I guess it's because part is a generational thing. You're closer to my generation, and that connects. But also because you're friendly. You don't have the superficial element that I see in many influencers, that is very formal and not deep. You're a real vegan. You're a real ethical vegan. I trust your judgment because it doesn't come from somebody give you money and sell a product. It comes from a genuine belief and following of the philosophy, and that is for me essential if I have to trust the judgment of someone. So
okay, yeah, it's been a bit of a tough journey to balance wanting to do the right thing for the community, wanting to do the best I can for animals, and living my life as a human in a sort of hellish reality of capitalism,
Right.
having to pay bills and look after myself. It's tough because doing the right thing often doesn't pay enough money to pay the bills.
Right.
And so all I've got is my authenticity and what I believe in. And I make mistakes. You know, I sometimes annoy people. I sometimes get on the wrong side of people, just like all humans do. But I try to do the right thing by people, animals, and the planet. That's just my mantra, or the way that I approach life. And if you do that, with that in mind, behind everything you do, there really isn't space for personal wealth accumulation. You don't want to set yourself out from the rest of the crowd, because that's not the best thing for the community.
yeah, and you explained this very well in a book, because you in 2018 published a book.
Yes.
And I read it, and it's excellent.
Thank
And
you.
what I like it the most is the style, because it's like you talking. So it's not, people often, it happens, and I written a book, so I know the problem. They choose different voices when they write and when they speak.
Yes.
And then the voice that they write is too formal, too detached, too intellectual sometimes. And then it reaches fewer people. And the best way of writing is that you write in a way that it feels that you're talking to the person.
Yeah.
And that happens with your book. Your book does feel this way. It feels that you're talking to me, you with your humor and everything comes across very well. And it's also very honest, and it does what I think books have to do, and vegan books in particular. So if we just say, do this, do that, this is right, this is wrong, that's meaningless to somebody that doesn't know who we are.
Yes.
So we need to give context. This is our opinion because of this.
Yes.
And you do it well. You just basically explain your background and everything, and then you can go ahead and say, this is what I think is good, and this is what I think is bad.
Well, thanks. Yeah, humor is a big part, especially self-deprecating humor is a big part of what I do as Sake Vegan. I think it makes me feel relatable to people, and I think it makes people feel like they can see a part of their own journey in my journey. I'm not coming across as I do everything perfectly. I'm not coming across as I have all the answers. I'm just trying to make people feel supported in their choice to expand their compassion. Now, I had been writing my blog for quite a few years when I was approached by the publisher of that book. I was approached by the editor at Nourish Books, at Watkins Media, and she said, look, we really like your blog and the tone of your voice. It was about the voice and the relationship I had with my readers. We think this would translate well into a book. So it was fun, it was stressful, but it helped me. It was almost cathartic, like it helped me bring all of my thoughts about how I want to be a better person into a book. And it made it almost like, I don't want to sound too radical here, but it made it almost like a manifesto of, hey, this is how I try and do better. I'm not perfect, but I try and do better in all of these ways.
And tell us the title of the book for those that want to read it.
Okay, am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah.
The book is called Fat Gay Vegan, Eat, Drink and Live Like You'd Give a Shit.
Cool.
And
let's turn around.
should we go down this way?
Yeah.
And yeah, so the book was really an extension of the blog and the public community events that I was doing. It was an extension of all of that compassionate support work I was doing for the community. fighting for other social justice causes on top of animal welfare and well-being and animal rights, and also, like you said, telling my personal story. It was a tool for me to explain who I was and what happened to me to make me the person that I am.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I met, either was a potluck in Holborn,
Yes.
or a vegan drinks event in Tibet,
Yes.
which was a very nice restaurant that is no longer there in London. And that must have been 2016 or 16, is that possible?
Oh yeah, I was running events from about 2012, I think.
Right.
So
And-
the blog started fatgayvegan.com, which I still blog every day, believe it or not. You don't need to apologize if you don't read, even I'm sick of it by now.
I do read them, I read the last one you published.
But that started in 2010,
Wow.
December 2010. So it's a long time, isn't it, to be
Absolutely.
self-publishing information and supporting the community. It is a bit tiring sometimes. I do feel a bit worn out, but I think it's made a difference, and that's the thing that keeps me going. So it's not about, like I'm in debt more than ever. It's not about enriching myself. It's about trying to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, I remember very fondly those potlucks. I remember the
Yes.
amazement, because I had not been gone out into the vegan community that much. And one of the first things I did was the potluck and the vegan drinks. But the potluck was amazing because so many people, it was huge.
Yeah.
So many people cooking their own thing, vegan thing obviously, and sharing. And there were so many that you would be eating and eating. And what I found, because it happened once a month, that they were kind of competing with each other. So they were
Oh, yeah.
outdoing them. And so the quality was unbelievably high. And
Yeah.
you would just see such amazing array of dishes.
And that was a lot of work and a lot of commitment and dedication on my part, and also my ex-partner Josh. We were together for about 20 years. And and anyone who's listening who doesn't know that Josh and I aren't in a relationship anymore, because he was such a big part of the Fat Gay Vegan story. Don't worry, we're still best friends and we do things together. We run a queer open mic every month to help support the LGBT community
Excellent.
in London. But that was such a big commitment, the potluck, because you don't think it would be, because other people are making the food, but it was the organising, the taking responsibility, and we did that every month
Yeah.
for 4 years, and that was, a really big ask of us, and but we were happy to do it. Just in the background here, can we see that in the video?
Yeah,
If we turn around, or
sure. What is that?
that's the Gallery Cafe,
Ah,
and that's a vegan cafe.
amazing.
And it is the site of my first ever London Vegan Beer Fest.
Unbelievable.
So a long time ago, I ran the Vegan Beer Festival here in the back garden of this cafe in Bethnal Green. So it's very timely that we're walking around now.
we haven't planned it.
We didn't plan it.
We just ended up here.
And I ran the first 2 years of it here, and then that event went on and I did it in London every year for 6 years. And I also took it around the country. I took it to Glasgow, Coventry, Sheffield, Manchester. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
So, yeah, London Vegan Beer Fest.
Yeah, excellent. So let's go to the other place, the
Okay.
Mandala Café that you chose.
Mandala, yeah.
Mandala Café. Tell me what you know about them.
So Mandala Café is a not-for-profit cafe, and it is attached to the London Buddhist Centre.
Right.
It used to be a vegetarian cafe, but about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, they refurbished and made the commitment to become a completely vegan cafe. It's always wonderful when a place makes that leap.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of my own transition from being vegetarian to vegan, and how monumental it can feel for some people, and especially businesses, how fearful it is. But what's great about this place is, well, you'll see. You've not been in there before?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Okay, you'll see how wonderful and relaxed it is, how friendly everybody is. I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not religious or spiritual.
Neither do I. Yep.
So I don't ascribe myself to what's going on spiritually in there, but I do have things in common with the practices that are going on in there, and that's about compassion and kindness and supporting community and doing improving outcomes for animals.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really important to support independent places like this that are not for profit in a world that everything is rallying against those kind of enterprises.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to have some tea there. They're about to be open, so we go on time.
Okay, so we're just passing the London Buddhist Centre.
Yeah.
And Mandala Café is right next door to it.
Excellent. I
think it runs as a separate entity, but it's part of it, and it helps fund the centre.
Excellent. So hopefully they're still already open, or at least they'll let us in.
They'll let us in.
Let's try. Yeah, here we go. Wow. Nice place.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
And we have to have some tea. This is where the tea options are.
Well, what tea do you normally...
Well, I like to try new things, but I like all sorts of teas. I mean, they have chai. Oh, chai.
They've got the breakfast tea, herbal teas.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to hear a secret? I should have told you this before I agreed to come on your podcast.
What?
I don't drink tea or coffee.
You can...
No, I can drink peppermint tea. I don't mind that so much. But I've never in my life I think I've had a sip of coffee, and I think I've had a sip of tea, like black tea. It's not my thing.
Peppermint tea is one of my favorite teas, although it's not technical tea. I take it. So I think I'm going to have chamomile tea. You can have a peppermint tea.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have a peppermint.
Excellent. Let's go and order.
It's hot.
I needed tea because talking makes you dry.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that I remember from a couple of weeks ago. We were together in a dinner that you organized.
Yes.
In Hackney.
Oh, yeah.
It was an amazing dinner, kind of a small group.
Yeah.
Because it was done by a group that you support, and the vegan food group that I want you to tell us a bit more about.
Okay, well, I actually work for the charity.
Right.
It's called Made in Hackney, and it's a food security charity, and everything it does is through a plant-based or a vegan food lens. So the charity has existed for about 12 or 13 years, and it's the UK's first vegan community kitchen, and it is in Hackney, surprisingly, by the name Made in Hackney. And we run free cooking classes to help people access information and skills based around plant-based eating. So while it isn't a vegan charity in the realm of something like Viva or the Vegan Society or Animal Aid, it does work to help people make food choices and upskill them with what they need to make those choices for lots of reasons. A lot of people come to us for health reasons, and then also we do it with as least environmental impact as possible. So we're really about giving people the skills they need to eat nutritiously dense food that's kind on the planet, kind on animals, and it's good for community. And that's what we do. So we run the free cooking classes every week. We also have an emergency meal service. It's called Community Made, and so twice a week we make a few hundred vegan meals in our kitchen that are packed up and delivered by bicycles to local households that have extra support needs. So it's really about trying to redress food insecurity, food injustice directly, but then also making systemic changes, helping people helping them get to the knowledge and understanding of how to recreate that themselves as well. The charity also does so much other work. We support people through a program called Plant Prospects, where we run workshops and we petition non-vegan businesses around the UK to try and get them to put more plant-based options on their menu, and we show them how it's viable as a business to do that, how it can be on trend, how it can be tasty, how it can be nutritiously sound for their customers, and how it can be cost effective. So that's a program we've been running for a few years. And then on top of that, we also run a program called Global Plant Kitchens, and that's where we support or mentor other grassroots organizations all around the world who want to start their own plant-based kitchen that's relevant for their community. And we run a free mentoring program, and there's a digital toolkit where people can learn from all of our successes and mistakes as a charity and a food kitchen. And we work with people all over the planet, everywhere from South Africa to Peru to I don't know, somewhere on the south coast of England, but all around the world. And so Made in Hackney is about having that emergency intervention locally, about having the broader systemic change across the UK, and then globally supporting global communities to make those changes. And it's all through a plant-based vegan lens, but it's also centering human well-being and social justice at the heart of what we do.
Well, that's amazing. It should be known more. It's like, although it's not a big organization, does big jobs everywhere in the world. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I think maybe there's a little bit in it that the name makes people think we're quite local.
Right.
But it is.
But I guess it's part of the thing, isn't it, to make the connection between the big and the local thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we are all part of a global community. So even though what we do here, like we're supporting Mandala Café today, which is in turn supporting the local community through wellness initiatives. Right. Made in Hackney does the same thing. But then if we've got healthy communities on our doorstep, those communities can be part of a healthy global, national and then global community. We're all part of the same system, and we all need to do what's best for everybody on the planet, not just ourselves.
Absolutely. And it also makes me think about a subject I want to discuss to you, which is the fact that veganism has a social justice component that is not just environmental, just not animal rights, it's social justice component, which links to what I believe is one of the essential things that the modern veganism has to become, which is an overlapping movement, a movement that connects different issues from which they are the same oppressors causing this different problems to different victims, but the oppressors are the same. I call this term overlappinality, and those vegans that extend their veganism to just from one single issue to all possible dimensions. I call these overlapping vegans, and I'm one of them, and I think you are one of them too.
What did you call it?
Overlappinality. That is the noun.
Did you pick that because it's so easy to say?
I picked up because it sounds right. Overlapping is exactly the concept. It's not really just getting together or seeing different dimensions. It's those that are overlapping. And I thought, well, let's create something that nobody else will create because it's complicated. But doesn't need to be used by anybody else other than me. But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And you must be one of them too, because reading your book, I feel that you're talking about these issues as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's why working at Made in Hackney is so important for me, because there's not just one way to be a fair or just or compassionate person. There are so many things that are interconnected, and so much of it is driven by the same oppressive forces like you referred to. So to be an effective campaigner for any social justice cause or any way to make the world a better place, you need to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
And that if you're running a food justice kitchen, you also need it to consider the impact it's having on animals and the environment. If you're considering animals and the environment, you also need to consider where the food is sourced from outside of that. Is it fair to workers? You also need to consider, is it accessible to everyone? Like, are you being ableist by not allowing the space to be accessed by certain people? Are you fighting against things like misogyny or racism and transphobia within the work that you do? We don't have to limit our compassion. That's how I look at it.
Right.
We don't have to just be kind to animals, and we shouldn't be, because to be truly effective, we need to we need to really go after the root cause of things. If we just stop eating animals and tell people to stop eating animals, that's just a surface change. We need a systemic change.
Yeah, and it's more going to the root of the problem, in the sense that the root of the problem is when people have indoctrinated us from childhood into believing that only some type of creatures matters and others not. Either you own family, or you own culture, or you own race, or you own a species. And it's part of the vegan revolution is to break that monotony, that narrow-minded look at the world, and realize that no, there's many more of us. Everyone's matter. And that means within the vegan movement, when you become vegan, you should not stop that process of expanding to your circle of compassion. You should just keep going outwards and saying everything happens, anything matters, the environment matters, even if they are not all composed of sentient beings.
Yeah.
Other humans of other cultures matter. Your health matters. So it's never a reason to say, well, I want to avoid harm to only a limited amount of creatures that could be harmed, and let the others suffer because I don't care about them. But that's not what veganism is. Veganism is expanding.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for people to fall into a narrow worldview because they feel so passionately or so strongly about animal well-being and reducing harm to animals that it can feel sometimes for people that anything else is a distraction or a deviation from that important, crucial work. But things matter when like they're deeper or they have more meaning. If you just do everything at a surface level, it doesn't really stick. So for us at Made in Hackney, we're giving people access to nutritious vegan food, but we're not giving it to them through, say, my lens as like a white cis man from Australia. We're making food that's culturally relevant to the people, to the beneficiaries at the charity. So we run West African cooking classes, we run Ethiopian cooking classes, we have fermentation classes, we have all different types of cuisine, and we make sure that it's relevant so that people can make profound changes that they feel comfortable with, that matches their reality or their lived experience. And that's what we need to do with everything in the world. We can't just dictate to people, don't eat animals, or don't be racist. Well, they shouldn't be, but we need to make these deeper, more profound changes and get people to be part of the change.
And also saying it in whatever language or the way you understand the context doesn't mean that people are going to understand what you're saying. Context is essential in communication. So if you have a very good message, but you speak a different language to the audience, then that audience would not get the message, even if it's very good. So you need to find the context. And what overlappinality does is broadens your perspective, so you see really more than what you actually thought you were seeing. You see the bigger picture. You see the other influences that are affecting you, the thing you look at it. And then explains why you're not advancing as fast as you thought. Because you thought, well, I understand you very well. Look, animal suffer, I'm going to show that to another person, is they're going to become vegan like me because that's what happened to me, and they don't. And then you wonder, why is that? Because you haven't taken into account the context. That person might have a different interpretation of what you're seeing. They might have a different cultural values, that they value things different way, and you need to change your language, your words. Even if you speak English, you might need to change your vocabulary because that's not in alignment with that worldview that person is interested about. And then when you understand it, then you understand why we haven't advanced that much, because we haven't been doing that. We've been very kind of narrow-minded, and that's why I think the modern veganism has broken that mold and has started looking upwards and more open, more context-based, and then trying to incorporate all the factors that are explaining why the world is still not vegan.
We need, like, if you have an open door policy that encourages people to see themselves within your movement, they're more likely to stick around. And allowing people to dip into it as well, because not everybody's on the same journey. Like you said, like you can present facts to somebody that made you want to go vegan, but that's not going to be the push that somebody else needs. Everybody gets there in their own way. So you've got to be welcoming and open and accept people on the journey they're on. Now, I don't mean that we should then put up with people being racist or misogynist in our movement. Those things should be challenged. But not everybody is going to get to the level of veganism that you and I think is the way forward at the same time or the same speed. And we just have to find a way to make our spaces and our activism inclusive for as many people as possible. And we need to protect people from other negative forces.
Absolutely. And also we still are minority everywhere in the world. And if we want to build a vegan world, we can't just do it from our own type of approach with the type of demographics or from London alone. London is just one tiny city in the huge planet. We need to incorporate that vegan message to different cultures, different demographics, different point of views, but still maintain the core message.
Yeah.
And I'm yet to see any culture or any group of people which is inherently incompatible with veganism.
Yeah.
There is all a vegan interpretation. For each culture, for each group, there will be a vegan interpretation, possibly more than any other ethics.
Yeah.
Veganism is the most widespread and egalitarian and diverse as a concept because it's very basic. It's basically saying do no harm. It doesn't really specify that much to whom. And that it covers everyone and everywhere.
And I really like, I don't know the exact language they use, but I like the Vegan Society's approach where they say to do as little harm as possible.
Yeah.
So because we live in a world where sometimes it is impossible not to contribute somehow to either planetary degradation or animal suffering or oppression of workers, but when you know better and you have the choice to do better, do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like do it when you can. Do better when you can.
It's as far as practicable and possible.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you just try a little bit or you reduce the suffering. No, it says as far as within your circumstances, and that is what changes. People's circumstances changes. So for one person, they might reach a lot, others might reach less, and not because of the lack of enthusiasm or motivation. It's because the circumstances limit what you can achieve.
Yeah.
So you can't really judge another person without knowing those circumstances, and you have to be open.
Yeah.
But that expression in the definition doesn't also allow you not to push for it. Just look for convenience only.
Yeah.
No, it's quite clear as far as can push you to the end, practical and possible within your limits.
And my book that we spoke about before, I talk about that, about expanding or spreading your compassion and looking for other ways to do better. So being vegan, or being a compassionate activist, veganism is one part of that. But you might not buy clothes that are made in a sweatshop, or you obviously won't bet money on animal racing.
Right.
Or if somebody offers you a piece of cake but it's not vegan, you can explain to them why. There are so many ways in your life that you get to live out your compassion, and you don't have to limit yourself to just your own personal choices around food. There's so many ways you can do it, like the way you vote for people, like the type of events that you attend, the types of organizations that you support, the types of conversations you have with friends and family. There's so many ways to express your compassion.
It's limitless, because any choice you have is going to be one variation that is the most vegan-friendly option from all the ones you have.
Yeah.
And a vegan is simply someone who is aware of that, and before deciding anything, ponders and wonders which is the option that is more vegan friendly from all those that are available to me.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's not measured by how successful you are in preventing your connection with animal exploitation.
Yeah.
It's measured by how much effort you put in doing it.
Yeah.